New cars are the gas of the fire, man. The way that I view it, the manufacturers, I think that they want us to make money so we stay in business, but do they necessarily want us making all the money on every new car? I think they want us to make some money, but not all the money, right? They're more worried about the market share and sales effectiveness, and quite honestly, that's kind of what we watch, is we don't really watch the new car gross. I really could care less about the new car gross. I need new cars in operation, units in operation, to fuel the other departments.
Today, I'm joined by Ryan Downing, dealer and CEO of Ross Downing Auto Group. 5 years after taking the reins of his family's 50-year-old dealership group, Ryan has nearly doubled revenue, and he's just getting started. His biggest challenge now, balancing legacy with ambition. As he honors the generations that came before him, he's executing his master plan. Scale Ross Downing Auto Group to 20 rooftops by 2040. A big thank you to our sponsors for making this episode possible: Auto Hauler Exchange, Equifax, and CDG Recruiting. And now let's get into the show. Ryan Downing on the CDG podcast. Ryan, welcome.
Thanks, Yoshi. Appreciate you having me.
One of the first questions I wanted to ask you before we talk about your background and the dealer group, but it's just one thing that stood out to me in your intake form was 20 stores by 2040. 20 stores by 2040. Today, you are the dealer principal and CEO of Ross Downing Auto Group. You're, I believe, a fifth generation dealer. So we haven't had many fifth gens on the platform. Third generation. But you guys have accomplished a lot, almost $500 million in revenue this year. And we'll talk all about it. Talk to us a little bit about 20 stores by 2040. What are you up to over there?
Yeah. So, on the third, fifth generation, whatever it is, we got some broken branches in our family tree. So, my grandma's side of the family, so my great-great-grandpa started a automotive group north of the town that we're in. We're in Hammond, Louisiana. They started in Amite, Louisiana. And real small town. Grandpa married into the family and then ended up breaking off and doing his own thing. So third generation under the Ross Downing name, and proud of that. So, when we're talking about 20 stores by 2040, man, I remember looking back, we talked about the power of your mind and just, trying to think at a higher level and trying to think at a higher frequency. I remember sitting there talking to my dad one day and I was like, man, how do people run more than one store? And I was just sitting here trying to learn everything and take it all in. And, you feel like you're getting sucker punched with stuff. And fast forward to the end of COVID of 2020, and I walked into his office and I was running one store at the time. And, there's a little story with that too I can jump on later, but running one store at the time, and I go to him and say, hey, Dad, look, COVID happened. We got all this stuff going on. Every store's kind of going their own different direction. We need somebody to pull everything together, kind of get some synergies back in place, get everything kind of aligned, have a common message, and get everything back on track. And without hesitation, he looked at me and said, you do it. I'm not coming back up there. And so when he said that, I didn't know exactly what he meant by it and how much he was going to kind of let go of things. But I quickly realized that it was probably a test to see what I could or couldn't do through that time of questioning how to run one store and then having to run 3 stores. A lot took place, and the level of thinking has to rise up to the occasion. The cool thing about it is what you might doubt or dread for a period of time, once you get thrown into the fire, you quickly overcome that within about a 30-day period. You start thinking differently and realizing that, there's a way to do this, and we're going to do it, and we're going to be successful. Getting to the 20 stores, once I realized, hey, this can be scalable. This can be repeatable. This is about people, inventory, and marketing, and how we see things at Ross Downing and how we want to execute on those things. And so through those 3 things, if we have those things dialed in at Ross Downing, we're probably going to have a really good shot of being successful. So I started pushing that through our organization, really put our leadership team together, went through a lot of culture training, leadership training, things like that, and realized, hey, we can do something special here. And we don't just have to be the little guy playing in your hometown. We can be somebody bigger than that. We can be a group that you hear about, a regional player. We can acquire stores in other markets and do different things. And so that's what we're currently looking to do, is how do we take 4 stores, grow it to 20 stores by 2040?
Okay. Well, first of all, what did you dread? Because the business has almost doubled in 4 years. And from 270 million pace in 21 to 490 this year million top line, that's not, I mean, that's no small feat. So let's just start with you on a personal level. Like, what did you dread? And then let's go into the business a little bit more, but let's just start there.
So when I say dread, I don't necessarily mean dread, probably more doubt. I think a lot of times, when you come from a family background, where my grandpa was under the impression where his saying was, you're better to run one store right than to run multiple stores wrong. Right. So you're laughing because you heard that before.
I'm laughing because I grew up in the lanes, in the auction lanes where people would tell me, you'll never be able to hire, a team of buyers because no one will spend your money and care about it as much as you. And like all these freaking annoying ass adages, which look, I understand why some people feel that way. Everyone is giving you the reflection of their lived experiences. But I thought, like, how can you possibly tell me that with a straight face? And to my left is a CarMax buyer who just, I guess that sort of is the stereotype, right? They just keep their hand up all the time. Although they are very smart, so I don't want to discredit them here. There's a whole method to that. But I get I know the feeling because I came from the same world where it was like scale is the devil. It's, good luck scaling. And, then you talk to someone who has scaled and it's a completely different mindset where, they just think way bigger. So that's why I laugh.
Yeah. And, look, I like the challenge. So, you kind of, so my dad ended up growing the group to 3 stores. My dad is not.
You said 3, right?
Yeah. So he went from 1 to 3. He's my dad is not your typical car guy. No ego involved at all. You talk to any car guy, man, my dad has no ego. He's very, very conservative. So, here I am, and those are the 2 guys I'm following from a very conservative nature and just growing at a slow pace over, we've been in business for 52 years. And I'm looking at things going, okay, well, how do I achieve what I want to do at the pace that we're currently growing? Because this is going to take forever, like we're moving at a slow pace. And then you look around and you see some other guys and they're moving quick. The other thing that I saw there too was, we're losing people because we're not growing fast enough. So you lose good talent because they outgrow you. And so, man, there was only so many times that I was going to allow that to happen before it's like, hey, we got to put together a growth plan or these people are just going to leak out of the organization and somebody else is going to gain them. That's kind of the deal. There's a lot of awakenings that I guess kind of happen when you start looking around and, you start trying to figure out where do you really want to take the company. And so I didn't dread going through that. How do you respect the previous generations as you move towards what you want? That's a hard thing to do. My dad expected me to know every rebate on the rebate schedule, right? So I can't tell you all those things and run multiple stores. So what ended up happening is I would just say, Dad, I can't tell you that, but we're on pace to sell over 9,000 cars this year. We're creating career opportunities, moving a lot of cars, and the business is doing well. And so that's the way that kind of run things.
How many times has your dad been at the dealership in the last 2 years?
Not a whole bunch. He's shown up for a few pictures. I think he showed up for the 50th anniversary with Chevrolet.
And I asked that intentionally, right? And which is, my next question being, what's your operating style that has led to such high conviction, in this, like I said, you're leading this group here after, you guys have been around for, decades. How are you leading the group? And, my follow up is going to be, let's do a little walk here of the growth, but let's just start with what is the leadership? And I'm not talking about the fuzzy, fluffy kind of stuff. We can get to that later, but I think just actually how was your vision been for operating this group and growth?
Yeah, I'll give you a few things. I might touch on a little bit of what you're talking about, Fluff, but I'll dive into how we operate. There's a lot of respect for the Ross Downing name that I operate with. So when I come to work every day, it's not for me. It's not for personal gain. I come to work for the name on the sign. I come to work for the people who show up here every day to respect the name on the sign and to support their families. So I have an obligation to represent that name well and to help create career opportunities for those employees that have shown up and continue to represent that name well at a high level. So that's really my driver for how we operate.
So back to the numbers now. That's helpful.
Yeah.
You've grown roughly 220 million in about, close to 5 years, say 4 to 5 years.
Yeah.
Start high level. what was the goal? When you became CEO, dealer principal, what did you seek out to do? How did you plan your growth? Walk us through that a little bit.
Yeah. So, funny story, right? So, let's go back, say 5 years. So I was 29 at the time, and here I am stepping in, no formal handoff from my dad or anything. This is just me saying, hey, we're going to pull together a leadership team. My dad had more of a shotgun approach. He had people he counted on, right, but didn't have, team meetings and things like that. It was more one-on-one type stuff. So here I am. I pull everybody together for a teams meeting, which everybody was still kind of adjusting to at that time. And of course, first meeting, right, we pull everybody together. You got a couple people scraggling in a little late. And I had a couple people on our leadership team that I caught an eye roll or two about people doubting that we were going to consistently meet every week and we were going to, really get any type of traction with this. Long story short, man, through pulling our leadership team together, several of those people, I think they kind of thought when my dad could retire, that they could kind of do what they wanted to do. And, that's not the way that we're going to operate. So we made a lot of high level leadership changes, positioned the right people in the right places, and started to just get traction with who we are and what we're trying to become. So we didn't talk about this vision of 20 stores by 2040 until recent. We've just been talking about growth and preparing our people. When you start talking about the numbers, that's where it really started. One of the things that I knew if we were going to grow, my dad wants to see a lot of consistency across the organization. And so I keep referencing my dad because we do work together very well. We talk daily, even though he's not up here. And I have a lot of respect for him and what he's done, but he also respects what I want to do. So in return for that, I'm not going to put him in a position or put our company in a position where we can't grow sustainably. So one of the things that I actually admire most about our organization is through putting this leadership team together, I started really focusing on sustainable growth, regardless of COVID, regardless of any of that. We don't rely on new car profits, period. All three of our General Motors stores are over 100% total absorption. A couple months back, I had one store at 145% total absorption. So, our team does a great job with that. Our Chrysler store that we just bought in last June, people, they get a bad rep. I think it's better than what people are leading to believe. That store's the lowest in our group on total absorption at 94%. And that number's not satisfactory. So when we grow, it's got to be in a sustainable way. So when we get to 20 stores by 2040, it's got to be in a healthy, sustainable way. We don't want stores to have stores. They got to turn off the cash that's needed to grow in a healthy, positive way.
This episode is brought to you by Auto Hauler Exchange. Ship smarter, pay less, no middleman. Auto Hauler Exchange connects dealers directly with haulers. The result? Faster deliveries, lower cost, and zero broker hassle. Learn more by visiting autohaulerexchange.com. That's autohaulerexchange.com or clicking the link in the show notes below. I don't want to gloss over that. 100+% absorption is, remarkable. Many people would die for that. How have you done that? Tell us about that. That's a pretty big deal, especially to do it across the entire group.
Yeah. New cars are the gas of the fire, man. The way that I view it, look, the manufacturers, I think that they want us to make money so we stay in business, but do they necessarily want us making all the money on every new car? I think they want us to make some money, but not all the money, right? They're more worried about the market share and sales effectiveness. And quite honestly, that's kind of what we watch is we don't really watch the new car gross. I really could care less about the new car gross. I need new cars in operation, units in operation to fuel the other departments. And we put capable people in those departments to capture all the business, service, parts, used cars. They have to capture all the business that new cars can bring. And that's how we view the business. We preach.
What are some of the
stop?
I can tell. What are some of the tactics you deploy? Give me the specifics, to achieve. You said one store is at 145%.
Not on the year. That was 1 month, but that was the highest month, obviously, that I've seen.
I got you.
But every store on the year, I will tell you this: the GM stores on the year are anywhere between 108 and 115% total absorption. So we're not just clipping the number. We're there by a decent margin.
Okay. And what would I, as a consumer, what would that experience feel like to me? And, conversely, as a manager in the department, what am I doing or what am I equipped with? Like, give us a little lay of the land of what it's like to achieve, 115% consistent absorption.
Yeah. So, look, for a consumer, it's pretty straightforward. When you're priced the way that we are to sell cars in the markets we're in at the volume we do, it's pretty straightforward. What you see online is the price you pay. You walk in, that's the price that you get. We're in a town of about 20,000 people, 45 minutes from Baton Rouge, 45 minutes from New Orleans. So we're not in a place that's supposed to sell, over 9,500 cars a year. It's just not supposed to happen. So what we do is we're extremely transparent, whether that be new cars, used cars. We price the cars to sell. Don't really care a whole lot about the gross. We chase the numbers, and some people might disagree with some of that. But that's the way that we run it. And we fuel our used car department and service department by doing that.
Just so I understand, you're optimizing, at a very great clip, you're really optimizing your dealership for the trade-ins for used and for the retained business for service.
Yeah.
That's essentially what you're telling me, right? Your new car department is really a funnel for those, and you're taking a very long-term look on the business, right?
Yeah, absolutely. The way I kind of view it is we push all our chips on the table in new cars, and we bet the house that the other departments are going to do what they're supposed to do. And so we put a lot of emphasis on those departments. I won't say pressure because, when you get the right people and equip them with the right resources, they perform really well and take pride in their work. We really try to run the business in a way where it's just transparent for our customers to come in and transact with us. We build a lot of trust. The name in this area says a lot, according to a lot of people that I speak with. When they see the Ross Downing name, they respect it, they trust it. Other people, whether it be people in our industry or not, they know it. And so we just try to put a lot on that. So every day we come into work, man, we see how many new cars we can get out. We let the other departments do what they're supposed to do. It seems to make the manufacturers happy and seems to be working well for us.
So this strategy, which again is it's a good long-term strategy, right? A short-term focused person is not going to likely deploy this. How has that impacted your margin going from 270 to close to 500 million in revenue annually?
Yeah. As
your net to sales, has that declined?
No. So net to sales is actually, better than pre-COVID. Obviously not as good as COVID when you're selling a bunch of cars at MSRP or even plus on special units. Right. But, as far as the net to sales, it's better than it was pre-COVID, and those numbers are very healthy. So
my assumption here is that you're at somewhere in the industry standard of like 3 to 5%. You don't have to, give exact numbers, but that's kind of my assumption. Based on that, how have you been able to grow so significantly without harming your net margin? What have you been doing to do that?
If you go back to the beginning of the conversation, I really talked about staffing, inventory, and marketing. So, when you go back to the time when I was really trying to figure the business out, in my mid-20s, my dad had purchased a third dealership. And, during that time, I was going from used car manager at one store to GM at another store. And I told my dad I wanted the opportunity to run 2 dealerships. And during that time, I actually did not succeed at that. I failed so fast, most people didn't even realize it was an attempt. But to this day, I still I came up with something and wrote down the reasons why I did not succeed at trying to run 2 stores. And so that was a lot of fuel for growth, because when I get faced with challenges, I want to take those things on. So I boiled that down. I have a bunch of notes on it, boiled it down to inventory, staffing, and marketing. What does that mean to us? Because that means something different to every dealer, right? But for us, I had to narrow that down for what that means in our organization. And there's nothing worse than walking through a shop and not having the whole shop filled with technicians. When you see empty stalls, that shouldn't be the case at Ross Downing. Technicians need to be in every stall. When you see, inconsistencies with staffing on the sales floor, we can't have inconsistencies with staffing on the sales floor. We need the sales floor to match the inventory levels at all times. So if inventory is at a certain level, I need the staff to meet the demand of sales that we expect with that inventory level. And so, when I started putting all this together, and then you look at our marketing budgets and how we're marketing, and are we marketing for what we really want to do, that has allowed us to maximize in all these other departments. So by making sure that we're not skimping on parts counter people, and making sure that we have every stall filled in the shop, and making sure that we have the right number of advisors to take in the workload, when you start getting that balance right, people's performance elevates, throughput's maximized, and that's how we protected the margin to let the business grow in a healthy way as we operate the way that we do.
Okay, so you turned up the dial on staffing, from my understanding. You got very serious and ruthless about that to maximize throughput. How'd you do that? I mean, where'd you find the people? Yeah, I mean, did you just like,
So I got tired of hearing excuses that we can't find the people. And so I told all my direct reports, and you got to remember, I'm in my mid-20s at this. They think I'm about half crazy because I'm trying to tell them how to interview people. But I told them, I said, hey, all right, that's fine. We're going to do 2 interviews a week. Every position that you need somebody for, set 2 interviews a week. You said, okay, well, how are we going to do that? Ads running at all times. So if you go look for ads in our market, we have ads running for every position all the time. General manager, F&I, sales, everywhere. We have ads running because, you never know when somebody's gonna leave or blow out, and you don't know when those things are gonna happen. And so many dealers get caught flat-footed, and next thing you know, typically those things come in 2s or 3s and not just onesies. So, whenever we see those kinds of things happening, we have to be ready to move. That doesn't mean that we're ready to change the people that we have, but we have to have enough skin in the game to be prepared for the unexpected. And so once we started doing that, the first guy, one of the guys who was actually one of the biggest doubters of 2 interviews a week, he came back and said, dude, I got 3 interviews this week. And so then all of a sudden the next person was like, how'd you do that? And they started talking. He was like, man, I was networking with this guy, talked to this guy, asked a couple people for some friends. We have our jobs posted.
Yeah, it seems like you changed the mentality to a growth mindset, right? If you're thinking about growth, it's like you got to always be interviewing, always have a pipeline. Totally makes sense. When you look back, what has contributed most to your growth? What specific department has actually contributed most to that growth?
I think it's hard to really say one department. What I would say though is we've put a big emphasis on fixed operations. Fixed operations, even through COVID, a lot of people were talking about the margins on cars, and we just stayed focused on fixed operations. We committed to a lot of training, a lot of consulting. We've had a lot of things happen in the fixed ops to maximize margin on parts, maximize our warranty reimbursement, maximize our door rates, and to put all these things in place. So those 2 departments have probably been the most impactful. Used cars, we were in pretty good pre-COVID, but we've sustained that as well. So it's like we had the used car piece down pretty well and just really started to hammer out fixed operations.
Mm-hmm. And I'm just out of total curiosity, has there been any person or training or service, something that has helped you, disproportionate amount here that you say, wow, this was a game changer at our dealership, anything like that?
Yeah, man. So, there's a guy, I don't know if he would, get upset or not, but I'm going to say his name, but he's a parts consultant. His name is Dave Pikush. And Dave does a great job. He's been represented in a lot of, NADA 20 groups, and we had him come into the store, man. We did a DMS conversion to DealerTrack, and, he came in and helped us get a lot of stuff straight in the DMS. He's really good with all that. Really make sure that you're monitoring your parts department. We have routine calls with him on a regular basis, and, he does a great job. So, most people would come on and tell you about their used car department and all that, but you get that parts department. Yeah.
You don't hear about parts often. You don't hear about that often.
It's not flashy, man. It's not flashy. But when you get that right, you get that the first time fill rate up, you start doing all those things, those technicians are happier. You get the shop filled with technicians, get the advisors set right, do all those things. All of a sudden now you're really turning some hours.
Have you cut anything big? Any line item, any expense, any investment? Have you made any big cuts along the way?
I have not made any big cuts. I think we run a fairly lean operation for the most part. Obviously, if we're running at those total absorption numbers, most people would consider that to probably be lean. We have about 355 people in our organization across 4 stores. And so what I would say is no big cuts. I've actually been focused on trying to ramp up some different things. So, more so on the personnel to be ready for the growth that we hope to have.
This episode is brought to you by Equifax. Auto dealers and lenders are in a tough spot. Fraud is more challenging than ever, with fraudsters constantly evolving their tactics. One of the keys to protecting your assets and approving loans with confidence? Thorough identity verification leveraging reliable data. You need to know the consumer and that they can afford the vehicle. Get the data you need to know your borrower better and make fast, smart decisions. Equifax provides instant, secure access to verified borrower identity, address, income, and employment information, helping you move deals forward quickly. Learn how the power of verified data can streamline your process. Visit theworknumber.com/auto today or click the link in the show notes below. What are you trying to ramp up? Like, where are you growing budgets, making more investments?
Yeah, particularly some of those places are in our accounting office. I'm talking about all the non-flashy stuff.
No, but I think this is really important, because if I'm a dealer or if I'm a vendor or if I'm just an enthusiast and I'm listening right now and I'm listening to a dealer who's progressive, who's growing, right, who's focused on developing their group, and you're literally telling me right now where you are investing money. And it doesn't need to be flashy, right? The accounting department back office is really, really important. I call it like the pulse of the dealership. So what type of investments are you making there, or what type of investments are you looking to make there?
Yeah. So I'll tell you this, man, we went through some times, and one of the hardest challenges that I went through was actually some changes that we had in our accounting office. We had some tough times and some different things that occurred. And when we went through that, I didn't really know how to navigate it. So we had to get some people in to help us. And thankfully, our CPA firm has some people that could come in and help us get some things straight and provide some support staff and some training along the way. So I'll tell you right now that there's been a lot of internal promotions going on in our accounting office. We've also done some hiring from outside. One area where we're heavy in our accounting office right now is controllers, and that's by design. So I have a corporate controller, and then I have 3 controllers underneath her, as well as an office manager. When you look at that, you go, why do you need a corporate controller and 3 controllers for 4 stores? And I always tell our team, if we can't do it with double the stores, don't do it now. So when we were at 3 stores, I would always tell everybody, if we can't do it with 6 stores, don't do it. So if somebody brought me an idea.
So you're pretty much saying, like, do what's scalable, build for scale. That's essentially what you're telling the team.
That's it. Build for scale. We're not going to just add one-off program. If we can't do it with 6, we're not going to do it with 3. We have 4 now. If we can't do it with 8, we're not going to do it with 4.
Nice.
And so
nice.
I'm prepping the accounting office for what I think could come in the next several years. And the one place that slowed me up the most from production and revenue generating activities was when we went through hard times in the accounting office. And, there's a few people in particular that really stayed committed to us and helped us through that transition of those times. And, I don't want to see the accounting office be a distraction to our growth. That shouldn't be the case, in my opinion. I got burned by it once. Don't plan on getting burned by that one again. So if we can't do it with
when you say I got burned by it once, what specifically happened?
Well, we had some things change where we had some turnover and didn't have people trained up, didn't have good processes in place. And, when that ended up happening, we were just kind of caught flat-footed. We couldn't operate efficiently. It creates some dysfunction.
Huge bottleneck.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, huge bottleneck. I mean, everything funnels through there, right? So we have 355 employees, 19 of them are in accounting, and they touch everything. So it's like, you're selling all these cars, selling over 9,500 cars, doing $490 million in revenue, 355 employees. And at one point in time, we had 9 people back there. So it's like, okay, well, that's probably not sustainable or healthy in any way, shape, form, or fashion. So we went ahead and
redundancy. Yeah. So we just staffed it up. And so when I say got burned, there's a lot of things that you slow down on when you have issues like that. I think a lot of the areas that dealers overlook are the ones that will slow you down the most. And kind of like we talked about, right? We overlook the parts department, we overlook the accounting office and all those things. But if you get those things dialed in right, you always have somebody that wants to be a used car manager. You always have somebody that wants to be an F&I. You always have somebody that wants to do those things. But you don't always have people that are highly motivated to be in those other departments. So
creating stability back there, creating leadership in those departments, building people up to perform at a higher level in those departments really makes the rest of the business so much simpler.
Mm-hmm. It seems like you've made a lot of investments in people. From what I can tell, it seems like that's the through line here. Like you've really been growing your overall team to be more efficient, to build for scale, and to maximize every opportunity. What am I missing other than in the investment in additional people, which along the way the right people will bring the right processes? Have you used any exceptional tools or any systems? I mean, what else don't I know about what has led to your growth beyond the additional people, which along the way the right people have brought the right processes, of course. Like, what am I missing?
Yeah, so look, I'm a big believer that I've been afforded some opportunities that maybe some other people don't just naturally come into. The life coach we talked about, some other training things, right? I mean, there's not a whole bunch of 20-year-olds sitting in 20 group meetings and seeing the information that I've been able to be exposed to. So once I was in a position to start making some different decisions, we did partner with the John Maxwell Company, which is now Maxwell Leadership. So John Maxwell is a key name in leadership, and most people that watch your podcast are probably aware of who he is. So we had them come in and do some culture training and different things like that. And through working with them and really getting some momentum on that side of things as far as team building and trying to build that team when I first was getting started, we then moved into an operating system called EOS.
Yep, so we've talked about it on the platform, yeah.
Yeah, I've heard y'all talk about it before. And, EOS has been a big deal. But, what I would tell people is if you're not ready to go to work, don't start the program. Because if you're really going to be committed to it and do it, you need to be prepared to work. And, if you go to it and you really set things up right and you are serious about it and you're going to have your quarterly meetings and you're going to be held accountable, you need to be prepared to go to work. Because most organizations that are in a growth phase or might be going through a generational change, you're going to have your work cut out for you at some point. And so starting all this around that time created a lot of transparency with who needed to be on the team, who needed to be off the team, and kind of led to all of these changes that I've discussed with our people. So that has been a key driver to get everybody aligned and moving forward.
Mm-hmm. What's on your mind now in terms of areas of opportunity? What are you thinking about nowadays? What are you focused on? I always like to say, we always have our big rocks, right? Where our attention is directed towards and where we're spending most of our, energy and effort as, leaders. And so what are you spending most of your energy on nowadays?
Yeah. So, look, if you can't tell already, my mind is constantly working on different things, but I am obviously looking to grow. And you've heard me say scale and people. I'm really looking for the best opportunities for us to grow, but to do it in a scalable and sustainable way. There's no reason for us to look to grow if it can't be scalable and sustainable. We should have a blueprint. We should have everything mapped out in a way where if we're going to go into a new store, new opportunity, it needs to be as simple as just tapping a guy on the shoulder saying, "Hey man, this is what we're going to do. Are you up for the challenge?" Says yes. Guy or girl's in the store, going to work, and it's as simple as just copy and pasting the Ross Downing processes into the next opportunity. I am looking for growth opportunities, so new stores, right? Looking for networking opportunities, because look, we've been with General Motors and brand new to CDJR. A lot of people don't know us. Trying to get our name out there to other manufacturers and things like that. We want to be diversified. And the other thing is creating career opportunities for our employees. I would say those three things are big. And when I say career opportunities for our employees, a lot of that probably falls under organizational structure. You can look at a lot of groups who grew and they all do it differently. And I think there's a right way for each group to do it. I want to find the best way for us and the best way for our people. Those three things are probably the biggest.
I'm gonna push you here for some vulnerability, which I think you'll deliver. But what do you struggle with? You seem like a very methodical, planned out, principled in a good way, of course. I say that with, you're extremely principled. You follow a North Star, which seems like it's been ingrained with you at a very young age. Just like, you seem like someone that has, strong morals, and your parents raised you well. That's just my very 45-minute assessment. So take that as a compliment. But what do you struggle with? What is hard for you?
I think struggling for me is breaking out of the mold of the previous generations and maybe what they were comfortable with, and moving into something that none of our generations have been comfortable with. But it's what I know is attainable and what we can do with the people we have. And I struggle at times trying to balance that out with, keeping some respect for what the previous generations have done for our company, and then moving forward with an aggressive growth approach moving forward.
I'm glad you said that, because listen, I'm no expert, but I've interviewed probably 1,000 people in my lifetime. And I think one thing that struck out to me was, is it 20 stores by 2040 in order to, as you mentioned, like balance out or like respect, right, the prior generation? Would it otherwise be 20 stores by 2030? There's no one could tell you how fast or slow to grow, but I did wonder, it's like, I don't know anyone that has a 2040 plan, other than China, who has a 100-year plan. And so naturally it makes me wonder, like, what's the driver for that? And you sort of answer that, which I appreciate. It's like, you're trying to balance this growth and your personal desires while with a transition from another generation, which maybe was not as growth focused and maybe didn't even want to grow at all. So I think that's sort of the balance that I'm, kind of trying to, understand here.
Yeah. So there was growth opportunities in both generations.
Feel free to tell me that I'm full of shit and I've completely misread you. That's totally cool.
I get that a lot. I've kind of been forward thinking like that pretty much my whole life. So each opportunity or each generation has had opportunities to grow and taking advantage of some of those. My dad probably would have done more opportunities, but not every deal works out the way that you think it should. And, so to get back to your question of would it be 20 by 2030, do I think that that's realistic for us right now, or it would be operated in a way that I would be okay with it? Probably not. There's a certain standard that I want to operate at. We don't just want to have stores to have stores. We want to be the best ran dealer group in the regions that we're in. There's no reason for me to have stores that perform at a mediocre level. There's no reason for me to have stores that we just go, that's just the way they perform. So it's got to be done the right way. We're not going to run 4 stores with 95% or higher total absorption and then buy another store and say 70% is okay. So when we go in to grow and do these things, it's got to be in a sustainable, scalable way. Hey, if that's sooner than 2040, great, so be it. I think there's an opportunity for that. I also think there's an opportunity that 2040 is the number, and I don't foresee it going past that if we do what we're supposed to do. But I'm not going to add stores just for the sake of adding stores.
I understand.
If they can't be ran and represent the Ross Downing name the way that I expect it to be ran, we're not going to grow.
Well, I understand the message. And I think the message to me, if you didn't tell me anything else and you just said 20 by 2040, I would simply say, you are focused on efficiency. You're not here just to spray and pray. You really care about quality. And I think that's reflective in the numbers that you mentioned earlier. We're not just growing just to say we grew to stroke our ego. We're going to take every single asset, every single gem, polish it, and then we're going to go to the next one. And the speed and pace at which we can do that may accelerate over time, but at the end of the day, we want to do it right. And by the way, I think that's a distinct model. I've had plenty of people on this podcast that would do a slower model than that and just not even buy any stores. And I've had other people that are buying, 1 or 2 stores per month, or attempting to at least, and are taking a different approach, which is like, let's just see if it works. If it doesn't, we'll divest it and we'll go on to the next one. So I think the bottom line here is like, there isn't one way. And there's just different ways, to the top. Many people do it different ways.
Yeah, and I would say, look, we don't have to take a one at a time approach. I think we have the people and the resources and the ability to do more than that. So, the right opportunities come up. I think we could find ourselves at some point, moving at a faster pace or, more than one opportunity at a given time. We have the people, resources, and ability to get that done, like I stated. So I still would want it to be in a way that represents the Ross Downing name the way that it should be. And we have a high standard, and we don't plan on dropping that standard for the sake of growth. I'm not willing to do that. But I think after buying the Chrysler store last June and doing what we did as quickly as we did it, I think
that was my next question.
Yeah, I think we can do it pretty quick. So.
This episode is brought to you by CDG Recruiting. Here's the truth. Top dealers don't leave talent to chance. That's why I built CDG Recruiting, the go-to talent partner for dealers who want the best. We're placing general managers, F&I talent, service directors, controllers, you name it. From the showroom to the C-suite, we work with dozens of the largest groups in the country. So if you're working with us, you're in good company. And because we've built the largest audience in automotive, backed by over 180,000 industry professionals across our media platforms, we know exactly where to find the people who can move the needle for your store. If you're ready to stop hiring like everyone else, go to cdgrecruiting.com to book a free call. Again, that's cdgrecruiting.com or click the link in the show notes below. So you bought the Chrysler store, took it from $70K to $282K, quadrupled fixed ops revenue. That's fixed ops only. How'd you do that? What did you do in that specific store?
Yeah, so, look, we were fortunate that store was in our hometown. So, we went into that store. We had a few people that we could move over, and we hired a few other people and just trained them a little bit before they came in. The service department was not an area where we really did that. Going back to June 3rd of last year, we walked into the store, and with 48 hours, everybody on the sales side walked out. I think we had 3 technicians, couple advisors. One is still with us working in our body shop at our Chevy store. The service manager is now in our parts department. So we were able to retain a small crew. They had about 25 people, including the family members that were there. And we went in and just implemented what we do at Ross Downing. So we looked at what the staffing needs were. We knew the inventory was not right. And we knew that the marketing was not at the levels that we wanted it and in the areas we wanted it. So we went in and did that as quickly as possible. When you're specifically talking about fixed ops, I will tell you, fixed ops growth is grown through sales. Now, it's not going to grow as quickly as the timeline I'm giving you. But when we bought that store, it was doing 30 to 40 cars a month combined, new and used. We closed on that store on June 3rd, and in October, we did 173 retail units out of that store. So by getting our message out there, getting our people out there, having our service BDC beginning to prospect service customers and get people in, and then we went from about 3 or 4 technicians to where we're up to about 12 right now, and really have the shop at probably maximum capacity. That's how we got the service numbers to go from 70 to 280,000.
Okay, and, so you said there people, then you said service BDC.
Yeah.
And you said marketing. I'm just jotting this down. So just walk me through for a second. What did you change in marketing?
When you're doing certain things on social media and you're putting a little money on, putting money in paid search social media for the service department, not all dealers do that or do that in the right way. We have a store that, in our opinion, was very underperforming and probably neglected on that side of the business. So we had a lot of customers from our area just driving their vehicles to other dealers to go get service. And so we really just flipped that, made sure that they knew the messaging was out. Again, the name, our name in the area that we serve, has a pretty good reputation. So once that got out, people just started to come over to us. We email blasted a lot of our other owner bases to let them know that, hey, we have a new store. We can now service your Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram product. And, that's kind of how we did that. Our service BDC is a centralized service BDC that helps the advisors with incoming calls, scheduling appointments, things like that. So obviously when you're going through that buy sell, everything's kind of hectic for a little while. They really did a great job, our service BDC did, of helping manage that traffic and setting those appointments up as we brought in technicians and balancing that workload in a way that made sense. And that's been a big help to keep it organized.
Mm-hmm. What's next? What's next for you right now? I know I asked you earlier, like, what's your top focus, but you recently acquired a store. You know, what drove that acquisition? Is it a specific deal? Was it a brand you were looking for, or a geography?
That deal was probably not necessarily the most attractive. We're working out of a very subpar facility. We have to build a new facility on the same property. So I wouldn't say that it was the deal. The deal was in our hometown, so we did the deal.
Okay, so it was a local deal. You've already improved the blue significantly, given the growth you've mentioned. I would assume, right, that it's trickled down to profit. So you're into that.
We're going to be working on some different things with that location. But, like I said earlier, we've really spent a lot of time building up our people. So what's next? I think it's looking for the next opportunity. We've proven to ourselves, we've validated, what our beliefs are and what our vision is and our expectancy is for growing. And I think we know that we have people that we can deploy and succeed in future by ourselves. And as we make other acquisitions, we plan to, use the people that we have and the processes that we have to make them successful very quickly.
If there is someone listening right now, may it be the CEO or chairman of some of the largest groups in the world, or maybe, a mom and pop dealer who's getting by. But if there's one thing that someone listening right now could be helpful to you, what would it be? What would you, if you have the ears right now of thousands of people in our industry, what would you tell them? No pressure. Let's crowdsource a solution for you on this podcast at this moment.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people that have traveled the road that I am, or at least the road that I think I'm on, right? So, there's a lot of people who traveled that road and they aspired to grow, wanted to grow, didn't necessarily know how to do it, but they figured it out and they did it. And, I think the thing that is always good is when you can find somebody that has traveled that road that is willing to share that knowledge with you and kind of spur that along to help build the confidence level that you can end up in their position and that, you can accomplish these things. Again, for me, it's not about the name or it's not monetary in any way. It's really about, how do we create career opportunities for our people and change the communities that we serve? And if we can do those things, then I'd be happy with the growth. But there's a lot of people out there who have done that. So anybody that's willing to mentor others, whether it's myself or anybody in my generation, if they've done it before, I would just encourage them to do that. I've had a few people that have helped me, and it really goes a long way with making sure the next generation of dealers is confident enough to move forward in these next steps. Because it's not very clear cut. It
isn't. And there's a lot of change right now. And it's a big reason why we do what we do here at CDG. So shameless plug on our end. But did you, by any chance, sign up for our dealer group chat waitlist? Did you see that by any chance?
Yeah, I had a few things going on, so I didn't get to it, but I've seen it on LinkedIn and I am looking at it. I'm planning on getting signed up for that, hopefully in the next week. Okay, well, if you go to dealershipguy.com and you press on services at the top there's a button that says services. The last thumbnail at the bottom is the group chat. You can just drop your name there and your phone number. And we're literally working right now in real time of creating these groups. We've already created a handful of them. We have 800 dealers that sign up, which is incredibly exciting. Yeah. And I'm obviously intentionally also mentioning it now because, we want to continue, growing this. And it's we don't want to roll it out too quickly, similar to you, by the way, right? Like we could have, people are DMing me like, Yossi, like, am I in a group already? Literally right now DMing me, and I'm saying no. And it's in your best interest because we want to do this right. So it's got to, slowly but surely here, but it's a similar thing. We're just trying to connect dealers. And man, dude, the sky's the limit. I don't even know what's going to happen, but it's pretty remarkable to be able to, in a position to put people together and, just help people, kind of get ahead. So it's really exciting stuff. Yeah. Hi, Ryan. This has been fun. Before we wrap up here, anything I haven't asked you, anything you want to mention, anything you want to ask me, anything else on your mind? Look, a lot of respect for what you guys are doing. I just got back from a 20 group today, and one of the guys in there was telling me that, he's thinking about canceling another subscription just because you guys are providing so much more information and it's real time. I think what y'all are doing is very impactful. It's getting a lot of momentum and a lot of attention. y'all are just doing a great job. So really appreciate everything y'all are doing in the industry. Really appreciate y'all having me on. Hopefully look forward to being back on as we grow and execute on the vision that we have set.
We're going to have to hold you accountable here for next time you come on the pod.
Good with it.
All right.
Good with it.
Ryan Downing from the Ross Downing Auto Group. Ryan, thanks so much for coming on.
Yeah, thanks, Josie. Appreciate it, man. Thank y'all very much.
All right. Hope you enjoyed that episode. Please give the podcast a rating, consider subscribing to the show, and check the show notes for links to what we talked about. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you guys next time.